All right, welcome to Get On Code, the Fly Guy Show, which is a series of melanated conversations focused on empowerment, health, wealth, and knowledge of self.
People think in binary choices because they are conditioned to.
And on the wall was a picture of a wolf and a lion. I think the wolf was the Democratic Party, the lion was the Republicans.
But the drug trade and all these illegal stuff that people do, that's still economics. It's just that they couldn't do it in a traditional system.
We're talking about melanated wealth.
So we can build wealth, but we just, for some reason, don't seem to be able to transfer it.
You had a great experience. Fine. That means nothing.
What were you told as a child about education? You had to be how many times better?
Every impression without an expression becomes depression.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Philip Jones from Newport News, and I am coming to you live. Thank you so much for joining us here tonight. I'll be filling in for Seiko until he pops on in about 30 to 40 minutes. So welcome to the Get On Code show. This show is focused on empowering our community. Our code is empowerment. When we state Get On Code, we are encouraging the family to get and remain focused on empowerment. Today, we have a special guest who is focused on empowering the Black community with a cyber bank known as PayBaby. Our guest today is going to be Hassan Miah, and we're also joined by a few of our platformers here on the show. We're going to wait till Mr. Hassan and Brother Zumbi actually jump on. Gentlemen, thank you for being on this show. I'm going to ask a few questions right now. Mr. Hassan, could you tell us a little about your background? And then we will hit you with some questions from our panels and from the viewers. Thank you.
Sure, and thank you for inviting me. My name is Hassan Miah. I was born and raised in Detroit, Michigan. Grew up in the area that has undergone a lot of transformation. Of course, you know, the most densest Black city in America. And then I went on to college, became a CPA, went to Stanford Business School, worked in management consulting and accounting, and became partner at KPMG, and stayed in that field for a while. And then eventually I ended up working with Hollywood consulting, and then I went into tech, and then I worked in that field for many years and then became entrepreneurial. So my background is really finance and technology, with a deep interest in all types of technology, including fintech, artificial intelligence, and blockchain, and other emerging technologies. So that's my background.
Sir, that's amazing. I can't wait to jump into crypto and blockchain and all these things about how do we kind of improve financial literacy for our community. Brother Zumbi, you want to go ahead and give an introduction as well?
Yes, for those of you who have maybe been following me the past few weeks, I'm Brother Zumbi Shawala. I'm the author of a recently released book entitled GOAT, Gospel of Afro-Nomics Theology. It's what I call a 21st century blueprint for Black economic power. And the best way I've described it is Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad meets Malcolm X's Black nationalism. So it kind of gives a more cultural perspective to business, economics, and finance. And so what I want to ask the elder in regards to economics, how do you see economics now with us being in a post-COVID economy? What importance does economics play for African people now, since we've seen industries be wiped out, we've seen Black businesses being eliminated, but then we also see opportunities emerging in this post-COVID economy?
Great. Is that a question for me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Hey, that's an excellent question. So obviously the economy of the U.S. and large parts of the world have been devastated as a result of COVID, but it's also a reset. And we as a people, even though that we suffer disproportionately, we need this reset, because if you look at our status in this country, in many ways we never got out of where we've been. And you look at our relative wealth position, I think was in the introduction, we're still at 10%, Black wealth still only about 1/10 of white wealth, the same as 1968, right at the end of end of the Civil Rights Act. So I think what happens now is, one, the reset makes it possible for us to maybe get a chance that we haven't had before. And two, the reason I think it will happen is that there's a technology reset. And then we're at an inflection point that will get us, hopefully, if we do what we should be doing, a seat at the table that we haven't had in this country up until now.
I think that's such a hard question, a hard answer. Before I ask my questions, I do want to introduce Sean Toole, who's the owner of Rising Business Solutions. Sean, why don't you give us an introduction, and then we'll kick it back over to Hassan to answer some more questions.
Absolutely. Hey, my name is Sean Toll, owner of Rising Business Solutions for over a decade, helping people. Actually, our goal is to move people from financial literacy to financial independence to building generational wealth. We've been doing that for over a decade in the Hampton Roads area, but actually grew. Now this year, we've been doing a program that we are actually national. And that's why I love this conversation, and I'm very much excited with that. Also, a founding member in the Hampton Roads Black Mastermind Group, and to help businesses grow, not only be so that they could be self-funding and building and get money in a natural way. So this is a beautiful conversation. Can't wait for that.
Thanks, Sean. I appreciate that. Sorry for skipping you right there. Going back over to Hassan. I think I'm an MBA student. I love talking about finances and consulting. Can you tell me what is your bank's 5-year plan? Like, what is going to happen with the bank in the future? I think myself and our viewers would love to hear about that.
We just started a year ago, but our vision is to create the first digitally focused national bank that has never existed, and that will cover every Black and brown person in the U.S. with the same access to banking as they would with any major bank. That includes deposits, checking, savings, investments, and lending, and any type of new instruments that may come along. So that's part of it. And then the other part is that we already started with equity crowdfunding. You can go to the PayBaby site and you can actually invest in this. So it's also important that we have a seat at the economic table. So our second part of our goal is that the people of our community should invest in entities such as ourselves, and we're offering that so they can be empowered too. Just like your vote is your empowerment for the political system, we'd like to give you a chance to invest so you could have your shares as your empowerment into our economic system. And our idea is to recycle money within our community and have that in every way possible. And our vision is that if we do that, I think it was mentioned earlier about all the money flowing through our community, which is, Black wealth is about $2 trillion, Black spending, not wealth. It's about $2 trillion, and another $2 trillion in brown wealth, but we hardly keep any of that. And that's because we're not allowed to recycle it, because the banking assets do not sit on our own institution. And that's why we want to be able to change that whole narrative and make it, we control our money, and then we put it for ourselves, and we give it back to ourselves, and we create a virtuous ecosystem. And then the last thing I'll say on that is PayBaby Corp is a Delaware public benefit corporation. So we have a social mandate that to focus on our community, and that actually gives us a safe harbor. So no matter what, if an investor came and said, you're leaving money on the table because you wouldn't take this predatory lending, partner, and we'll say, no, we can't do that, brother. We got to support our community first and foremost. And there's good money to be made in doing it honestly and in supporting our community.
Thank you, sir, for that.
Okay, I guess it's my turn. Baba Hassan, you had brought up the thing about crowdsourced funding. And one of the things that I've noticed is that, you talk about coming to the round table of power. And it seems like we've been absent when it comes to coming to the round table in terms of equity financing. Could you elaborate or expand further about how your bank will help us, get a foot into that equity financing?
Sure. Again, probably like Philip, since I'm an MBA, also I love statistics and things like that. So, as many of you may be aware, less than 1% of all venture capital go to Black entrepreneurs. And then if you were even to dissect that and take what percent of capital goes to Black entrepreneurs focused on Black business, and it's such a small number, you got to use a few zeros in front of the decimal place before you get there. And that's not only true there, but that's true in lending and everything else. So we're going to have to learn to finance ourselves, and we should do a much better job. So that's why we were excited about doing equity crowdfunding and that kind of thing. The other thing that is related to that is because equity investments and other things has historically been the domain of people who have more money, and we disproportionately are much more of a spend what we have type of economy. We've had less money or capital available to spend in equity, but that can change. There's a couple ways that can change. One, there are ways in which, if you look at Africa and other places like that, even when they had no money, they had things like Susu and other things where they figured out how to spend and lend among themselves. And we've had very little of that among ourselves. And a lot of that is oppression, right? Many people forget that Frederick Douglass was the first Black bank president in America. And then they tore that down. And they've been tearing down our businesses since the beginning. And this really hasn't stopped. So, but I believe that we're at a moment in time where that can stop. And once it does, even with all the spending that mainly needs to be consumption dollars, if it can flow through our institutions that we control, then we can start that cycle of spending, savings, reinvestment, and other things for the benefit of our own community. And you can't do that unless you're have a seat, unless you're in banking, because everybody puts their money in the bank.
Absolutely. And Mr. Hassan, I have a question because, I think we had a little conversation prior to this and helping Black businesses grow. And we had that little conversation with so many Black businesses, one, during the COVID situation, failed more than white businesses or other businesses. Also, a big reason of that, they was not able to get the PPP loan, was not able to apply. And one of those reasons, a lot of them don't even have business bank accounts, right? So just touching on that, what is some of the ways you can break that? Because I believe in the Black community, sometimes there's a fear of banking. They don't trust banking. So how can you guys, one, reach over, that fear, and how can the Black entrepreneur benefit from you that maybe they could benefit from the traditional bank or the large bank, that they could get that help from you?
Yes, great question. So when we started Pay Baby last summer, which came about as a result of what happened with George Floyd and looking at how we can do something more significant, we noticed that 25% of Black people are unbanked or underbanked, and a lot of it's because they don't either trust the bank, or the second reason, they can't properly get an account because they don't KYC, known as Know Your Customer. So the bank denies them an account, and that can be because the credentials of our people tend to be a little less stable than your white household who owns their home. So their housing stable, their work stable. They have all these things that are very stable. So when they get a bank account, they immediately qualify, and we don't. If you go to our site, you notice that you can get an account as short as 5 minutes, but you do have, it automatically goes through the KYC system, and we use software to approve you. But we discovered after, and we got this, we got up and running because we were fortunate enough to buy a live digital bank. But we noticed that they disproportionately turned down our people for these reasons I talked about. And that's another important reason we're there, because many of these people shouldn't have been turned down. Just because you bounced a few checks in college, that could happen to anybody, doesn't mean you're dishonest. So there's all these reasons why we were not allowed to get it. And so a key reason why it's important that people like us control it is that we can start knocking off these issues that keep us from getting an account. And then related to lending, we also are a PPP marketing agent. And we noticed that, as you mentioned, Black businesses, failure rate is almost double that of white business, like over 40% versus in the 25% for white businesses. Why is that? Well, many don't have an account. So we work, for example, with Carver Federal Savings Bank here in New York, the largest Black bank in the U.S., and they told us about that. And so being a technology company, we found a software platform that would make it easier for anyone to get on, to apply for a PPP loan. But there are also complications because black businesses tend to be more, say, small 1 and 2 person people banks, so they don't have QuickBooks and all these 941 and all these statements. They're honest businesses, so then they get shut off for that. So we need to solve all those things, and many of them are also, is beyond what I could do as a bank. It's government.
Yeah.
When I discovered they didn't have a bank account, I said, "Oh, great!" Biden said 8 million people didn't have a bank account, mainly our people, right? I went to the IRS side. I said, "Oh, I'll click in there to show people how to get a bank account." I noticed you can't do that. You have to go through this tax return. I mean, there are all these barriers that we need to solve. But first and foremost, we got to let people know, hey, you can come to PayPal. You can get a free account quickly. If you can't, contact us. We'll help you. If you need PPP loans, go to our site, fill it out. If you have any issues, contact us, and we'll help you get through all these little rules and roadblocks they set up, because there's no reason we shouldn't have the same access as anyone else. And so that's how we're micro-targeting our community to do that.
Hassan, I want to jump in there. I know we've talked about this before one-on-one, but I think with the summer of 2020, a lot of things happened. Everyone calls it, the racial awakening of America, or perhaps the second or third, racial awakening. And all these things happen. You could donate here. All these kind of black banks seem to pop up, or at least were amplified overnight. I guess my question is, what makes your bank different than other black banks, such as One United or the Greenwood Bank? I know you've mentioned, a few things that distinguish yourself from others, but I'd love to hear, why is your bank different? Because there's so many things out there. I think people would love to know, what makes yours so unique? Sure.
I'll start by saying, I'm glad there's more opportunities for more banking. So I'll preface it with that. But our Wicked by PayBaby banking app is the only banking app available in the market today. So the other ones are still in development, and so I'm not sure when they'll actually be out. So that's the first and foremost thing. We are alive today. You can go to our site and you can get a bank account today. And then if you need a PPP loan, you can go there and you can be referred to a PPP loan today. So and then if you look at One United, which is great that they seem to be in a lot of locations, but there are $20 trillion in banking assets in America with a T. Yet there are only $5 billion, of black banking assets. So all the black banks in America are so small that their ability to actually do something is very limited. And so where we're different is, like I said, we will scale through technology. So I call us at the Amazon moment, where it's now possible a bank like ours, which is immediately in all 50 states, and then the other part of it is our goal, and what we're working on is creating that virtuous ecosystem. So not only do you start depositing our bank, we're going to work with the minority deposit institutions to make sure that the money flows through these institutions to create that virtuous cycle. So versus today, where you open a bank account at Wells Fargo or B of A or anything, and then as we can see, since less than 2% of black capital recirculates within the black community, that means that money is not going to black entrepreneurs or black homeowners or black people in need of credit cards or other forms of debt.
Bob, we was having a conversation earlier from a customer service perspective, and I was talking about the situation recently in Connecticut with a young black woman who could not get $1,000 withdrawal from a TD bank teller. Mm-hmm. Now, she represents this nonprofit, and she felt very humiliated because the check had cleared that was deposited 24 hours earlier. Mm-hmm. But the teller told her point blank, I don't feel comfortable giving you this money. And when Brother Sekou had told me that you were going to be our guest, it was like, okay, now online banking is really the wave of the future. So how does, from a customer service perspective, your bank in particular gives the black and brown customer his dignity and his integrity back, where they don't have to deal with those humiliating incidents?
Well, great question. So it starts right now. If you want a bank account, you sit down in front of someone and you open an account. You have no idea whether they'll even accept you. And you don't know if they don't accept you. They don't tell you why. Whereas if you're digital, there is no such thing. There's no someone looking at you and making judgments on you. So we're digital, we're online, so that doesn't happen. And so the whole idea that you have to be dependent on a human interface in order to have access to banking is simply wrong. And that's what happened to this person. So that's where we're going to be different. The second thing you asked about customer service. So a core part of what we're building is that we have a customer service platform where we look at all the and we have a series of questions and answers where we, using artificial intelligence, try to do the best job of making the most seamless experience as you get an account or you have questions or there are any issues or any of that. So you understand everything. And again, this is an online experience. And then finally, we have live chat, not live chat, a live person that will get on and talk to you. So this whole movement of where you have systemic racism that blocks us from things that shouldn't even exist. If, for example, if you're completely banked and it's $1,000 in your credentials, man, what the heck does someone feel about it to have anything to do whether you have access to the money? I mean, that is completely ridiculous. But that we find that all too often when we come in there, they just look at us and decide, oh, okay, this person must be wrong for whatever reason. And again, a lot of that is the data that these institutions, these white institutions have that they use as their criteria is based on deep discrimination. And that hasn't changed. And it's the way they think about us too. They often think about us as, oh, if I help you, it's charity. When I help a white, whatever, or non-black, oh, I'm doing business. And that mindset is something that we have to change. And that's a key part of what we're working on.
And I think as we all kind of seen with the our community, we're having a lot of challenges with banking and challenges, and that's why we need places like your bank. I'm from an entrepreneurial position. I have been in business, 10 years. It keeps coming back to me. So if I'm an entrepreneur, I'm coming to you, right? And like a lot of the questions you just said, there's a lot of barriers for us, but is there any education or places that we could team up, or have you teamed up with any places to help get your message out or educate people about how to do banking correctly?
Yeah, great question. So we started our company. Like I said, the idea came after George Floyd. We started the company. We ended up raised a little money. We bought the bank. That happened on Martin Luther King Day. So we're in the process of equity.
Congratulations, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, can we do that? That deserves a clap. I mean, that's some fast work right there. I mean, I'm just telling you, look, I have to do a heart for you for that one. That's
right there. I used to tell my boys. I shouldn't say this. I said, man, we're behind the 8 ball of history, man. We got to move. Can't play around with it. So in talking about in terms of entrepreneurship, so in the beginning, our account is like some of the other big ones. You probably heard of Chime or some of them. These companies are worth as much as top 20, and their consumer accounts is what we have now. But we also are moving into. We're going to add business accounts focused on our community. So all these building blocks that keep us from participating, we plan on changing. And then, like I said, underneath all that, the key is the data and the banking system and the things they do to keep us from having full access. And a lot of that is driven by, and that's where I call AI is so important. Like if you download our account, you'll notice a couple of things when it comes to, you mentioned financial literacy. I like to say financial education because the word literacy always bothered me because of the flip side of that. But when I think about that, and again, being in the tech world, I think, okay, we got to help. We want to partner with more. And we've given joint sessions, and we've done some webcasts. Like with one group is like a Black moms group to help them figure out how to get a bank account. So that type of thing. But secondly, if you go to our app, you'll notice it has what I call, it uses intelligence to improve your ability to bank. For example, every time you spend, it gives you a notice. It categorizes your spending. So you'll know if you spend $100 on Starbucks, and you're like, what the hell? Why am I spending $100 on Starbucks? I ought to be spending that on food or diapers. This is ridiculous. But a lot of people don't notice it until you point it out. But if you look at our app, that's embedded in there. So our focus and our desire is to use this technology that it automatically starts to help you. And eventually, this is where we're going to distinguish ourselves, is that we're going to add technology where it's going to start noticing how you spend and how you save. It's going to first recommend, and then our dream is you hit a button and it will ask you, do you want me to help you? And you say yes. And as soon as you say yes, it takes over. It won't let you'll hit a wall at Starbucks. You won't be able to spend more. It'll start doing those kind of things.
And Brother Hassan, can I ask you real quickly, how do you get that app real quick? Because we haven't put that out for the audience. How can someone could get that app right now?
Yeah, so it's www.paybaby.com. That shows tells you all about our site. Or our app, since we bought it, is called Wicket, WICKET. And you can and it's Wicket by PayBaby, and you can get it at the Google Play Store or at the Apple iPhone App Store. It's available.
Spell that one more time for me. WECK.
WICKET. Wicket.
Okay.
With a T at the end, like the game of Wicket versus Cricket.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And it's available now. So anybody and everybody in the audience, you can pull up in your phone. You can search in the Play Store or on the App Store. Search for Wicket by PayBaby or type in PayBaby, and it'll say banking app. And you can download it and sign up for an account. It's totally free. You don't even have to add a penny ever if you don't want to. But of course, you won't get the benefits of banking with it if you don't. So we hope you download it and then load money into it.
Sir, you hit on a few things that I really want to circle back to. You said, what do we need to focus on as the Black community? And I think I want to flip that to what are some tactical steps that families can take to start this virtuous cycle of money management? For example, I can remember when I was young, my father sat me down and said, this is the stock market, right? This is bonds. These are dividends. These are things that, this is how we create this financial wealth on this amazing journey. What can individuals do on the tactical level to increase this kind of money management?
Sure. So everyone needs to think about money management as a core part of their life. So that is, so I do highly recommend that financial education and those things be included. And we often are on Facebook and other things where we promote things that help with, financial education and that type of things. The second thing is, of course, if you go to our site, PayBaby, for example, we explain how you can get the stimulus checks. Many people, again, millions of us missed the stimulus check because they didn't have a bank account. Or if they did, they didn't know how to connect their accounts in order to get their own check. So it's important that you go out and seek out easy, ways in which you can participate. Now, the next area is, investments and savings. I recommend that everyone include a savings plan. Again, if you look at our app, there are automatic saving tools already in there. So you could automatically tell it to save so much, or it has a roundup feature. Every time you spend 60 cents, it'll put the last 40 cents into your savings account. So you should develop savings types of habits. And then the other part that's very important is that I recommend everyone does at least a weekly or monthly review of where they stand. And no matter how little money you have, if you start thinking about it, you can actually start to even if it's only a little, it'll get you in the mode of thinking about, I have to do this. So when I do end up, getting a little bit more this week or this month, I already have a habit or I know where to put it. And then lastly, don't be fooled by these get rich schemes. I mean, it's okay to, we all, have dreams. So that's why people buy a lottery ticket every now and then, knowing the chance of winning is like less than 0.001%. And there's, I get that. And that's why people are now excited by Bitcoin and blockchain and all that. We plan on adding, savings and cryptocurrency and all that. But our goal is to do it in a way and help people figure out a way to do it in a rational way in which they can balance dreams versus practical ways to save and spend.
Okay. My question goes back to the business loan aspect. Do you see PayBaby at any point in time becoming SBA certified as a certified lender through the SBA?
The short answer is yes, absolutely. So
okay.
we believe it or not, we've already applied for the SAM and gotten the federal, all the stuff to get a SAM account, to become a federal contractor, that type of thing. And then to become a minority, and there's something called CDFI, Community Development Financial Institution. So we're also in the process of doing it. But remember, we just started. So this thing, it takes time with these bureaucracies. But we plan on doing both of those things. At some point, we're looking at possibly going for a bank charter. It used to cost $100 million to get a bank charter, but that has changed dramatically with digital. So the very first digital bank charter was issued on August 1st. So this is very, very recent. But our goal, and that's good news about it, but there's a flip side of it. It's a lot of regulation. But as you notice, we're already working with Carver Bank. The other thing is that we plan on working with the network of MDIs and CDFIs in existence. Most of them, of course, have been around, and they come from the banking field. We come from the tech field. So our goal is to build the tools, technologies, and services that will support our community and all these CDFIs and MDIs that need the latest in technologies and services and empower them. And then as part of that, to make sure that deposits go to these type of institutions that reinvest in our community. And so with that in mind, we're already in the process of adding business accounts. We're adding a way in which we can give, these type of institutions can give loans with money from these accounts too.
Okay. Brother Hassan, you had just said some acronyms. Can you explain those? He said CDFIs and
sure.
He says, so the people might not, for some of us that might not know what that means.
So there's something called a minority depository institution. These are and there's another one called Community Development Financial Institution. Both of them are designations by the federal government from the Department of Treasury, and they, if you have that designate, most of the black banks have them, but there are a number of non-FDIC depository institutions that also have this designation. If they do, they qualify for grants and special loans from the federal government if they spend that money on low income and minority communities.
Gotcha.
So that's about. Mm-hmm.
I appreciate that. I wanted to ask you. It seemed like you come, like you said several times, you come from that tech background, and you're doing some things with technology that other, I guess, the black banks that's trying to come out is not. What advantage you feel that having that tech that you already, so you can already get that tech. That's immediate, and that's where the world is moving. Well, the world is here. Move to tech, right? Yeah, that's how come my man Philip, but Gen Z or something like AK or something.
Whoa! I'm 31. I'm 31.
Okay. But all my guys, all the young people, they live off of tech. They techy. I mean, tell us some advantages you feel that you're starting off that way versus more traditional brick and mortar.
Yeah, sure. So first and foremost, any older, more established company has legacy, because the longer that you're in business, the more you develop established habits. So that's one thing. The second thing is because when I say technology, it's moving very, very fast. The rate of change in this country is quite amazing, and around the world. And so, I mean, it wasn't that long ago where people weren't thinking about doing everything on their phone, but now your smartphone is like a supercomputer. It can do pretty much anything. And the other part of it is the comfort level. So I was giving a speech at a Black Rotary Club a few weeks ago, and probably the average age was, I don't know, it probably was well in the high 60s. And I thought, these people will not be comfortable. And here's where the last several months of the pandemic has made a difference. They immediately pulled open the phone and they started downloading the app. They're like, "Oh, this is great." And then they asked me, "Oh, but I'm here, I'm here in North Carolina. If I give you money, who's going to get it?" And then I said, "Well, at the moment, it doesn't go in your community, but we're working on that." So that's a big part. And then lastly, there are new things, like I mentioned, Bitcoin or which Bitcoin actually sits on the technology called blockchain. And blockchain is also known as digital ledger technology. And what it does, it does a immutable record of a transaction. It's basically an accounting system. I'm a CPA, okay? And that accounting system is something where it's impossible to change the entries. And therefore, it's 100% trust. So what we're building is what I call the trust engine. And the trust engine will make it possible that, a lot of Black people don't trust what's going on. They don't know why their score is the way it is, what changes, that type of thing. Our goal is to apply this technology in such a way that you will trust it. You will see it. You will see why you can trust it. But it will be anonymous. So I call it anonymous, trusted digital. And then that could break this chain of trust that it currently exists. And that's where we see ourselves being able to provide a lot of leadership in that space.
Awesome.
I appreciate that. I know Brother Seiko's coming on here in a few minutes, but I guess for me, my last question is, I know that you're a CPA. I know, credits and debits. I understand the vernacular. I know that a lot of our community, we're underbanked. Everyone knows this. When you look at the future of cryptocurrency and Bitcoin and Ethereum and blockchain technology, how do we ensure that our community is able to benefit from this boon of technology that's going to happen very, very soon?
Sure. So there's two parts to it. First, there's the Black community. Actually, there's sort of two parts now. There's the people like me and maybe you who are, American descendants of slavery, right? My grandmother came from Mississippi and their grandparents were slaves. But that community is sort of flat. The other huge part of the community is the Black community that's arising from Africa and the Caribbean, and that community is growing, and they are very big at remittances and sending money overseas and that type of thing. And cryptocurrency and blockchain reduces the cost of transferring money. Also true with the Latin community in Mexico. It can reduce it well over 95%. So that's a huge benefit of cryptocurrency and blockchain technology. The second part, which is a bigger question you're asking, is why we need our people heavily involved in engineering, why we need us to be more in mathematics, artificial intelligence. I don't know if you read the article about the sister who worked at Google who quit, and she was saying that they're developing racist algorithms, and it's sort of like the virus. The virus isn't racist, nor is AI or machines aren't racist. They're just atoms and algorithms and data. It's the input and the programming and the point of view, and so it's the same with banking. There, someone who worked for him is one of the senior most people at Experience, and he said, "Hey, Hassan, our stuff is perfect." And he showed all his algorithms. I'm like, "Yeah, that's great. Your algorithms are perfect. Look at that data, though." He said, "Okay, you got a point." And so unless we are there and we have a seat at the table and we're applying our skills to make sure that this next generation of when robots and artificial intelligence comes out, that it looks at it holistically and it takes the point of view of our community, we're going to be in trouble. And it's going to be more important because the rate of change is accelerating.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, okay. My question is from your perspective, what industries do you feel will benefit the most from online banking?
Which industries? Banking, and there is no industry that doesn't take banking because banking is money and money is everywhere. So having said that, if you look at, housing, for example, is one area where we've been excluded. And, starting with right after World War II, with FHA and the VA bill and all that, they basically redlined us out of it. And I think, as I mentioned, with MDIs and CDFIs and all these other things, if we are we should be able to participate if we get involved in real estate and lending and that type of thing. The other thing related to it is all the related industries like insurance. One of the groups I met with already is one of the largest life insurance companies. And they told me, Black people tend to buy life insurance, but they get small policies and they actually pay relatively more than the white community. Why? Because you tend to buy insurance from agents, and agents look to make the most money. So they immediately go to the more profitable customers before they go to the less profitable customers, and they charge them more. Technology can solve a lot of that. And then you can integrate that into banking and everything changes. Then the other area that we see, like in particular in the lower end, for people who are receiving food stamps and healthcare. Healthcare is the largest industry in America, next to banking. And as you know, we died at twice the rate on COVID. So as a result, what's going on is there's a lot of these insurance companies, they're paying you for healthy habits, and they give you a special debit card, and that debit card allows you to, you get paid if you go see the doctor and other things, but you can't use it to buy alcohol and tobacco, right? It's limited. Well, a new kind of bank account, which we're building, automatically could be the same debit card. So when you go to the store, they have no idea that debit card actually have these healthy rewards in it, but you can't spend that $100 on alcohol and tobacco. Or you could do the same thing with food stamps too. So you could have intelligence what's inside of it and start integrating these APIs. I shouldn't say APIs, it's kind of technical term, but you could integrate these type of applications into banking and make it possible where you could offer these services in such a way that makes it possible for anybody to have access like anybody else. And that's a big difference. Go ahead.
Well, that's actually, I want to encourage you to say those inside terminologies that you have and educate us on those, because, those are important things. We need to know those. So one of the things I think what you're saying is that our spending habits, our activities, all the things that we're doing can be benefited by the technology that out there that right now we're not, the Black community is not using to our advantage, but sometimes it's being used to hurt us, right? Because input, the people who are managing the input, that they're not thinking about our community, they're not from our community, or they're not there to rectify that. So, touch on that just again a little bit, just in general. I mean, that might be a general statement, but how that directly impacts us.
Sure. So I mentioned a couple things. I mentioned about healthcare and that type of thing. One thing that's sort of a pet peeve of mine. They talk about the private market or public market for healthcare and that type of thing. Well, health insurance is nothing but a big accounting machine. They don't actually have doctors. They just move money from one place to another. And so that's, in many ways, that's a type of banking service related to healthcare. And again, because we're not, right at the middle, we don't have a seat at the table. The flows, those money flows, often do not benefit us the way they should. So we need to figure out where that's going. The other thing, there's this lady who she's a PhD. I can't remember her name. She's been on the news. I saw her on MSNBC the other day, and she talks about how our tax system is very racist. And people say, what do you mean tax system? She said, well, the whole idea, it was created by white people because they originally, they primarily had the father worked and the mother stayed at home. So they called the marriage deduction. Whereas in the Black community, both parents had to work. We don't get the marriage deduction. So we automatically pay a higher tax rate than the comparable family in the white community that only has one income. So there are all these areas in which we are hurt. And so we need to understand what they are. And so a big part of what we're looking at, and again, all these money flows start, like if you haven't filed your tax return, the last thing they do is, where should we send your money? And that's where you could click on your bank account. So our goal is to add and to start, I call API, that's called Application Programming Interface. And so that is where all these technologies are linked in to the money flows. And so and here's the other part of this big inflection point with digital banking. In 10 years, I believe the vision of banking will be so different than anything that we imagine today. It's similar to TV. If you look at little kids and you talk about turning the channel up or down, they won't know what you're talking about. They're like, which app? Which app are you talking about? Are you talking about Disney Plus or HBO Max or whatever? They don't even think of, you almost have to be 15 or greater to even know about cable TV flipping up and down channels. Young kids don't do it. Similar things are going to happen to banking. It's going to be which app? What is the API? How does it integrate? Because money flows through everything. And that's what we need to be thinking about every time we're involved in any service. How does it touch the money system, the money supply, and how do we integrate into it? It's a little bit philosophical, but I hope that, I hope that explains.
That's okay. That's exactly. I just wanted to make sure people know. Had to step off for a moment. I mean, so we appreciate Philip for his help there. Now, I know we also talked, and I know, brother, but we're going to continue the conversation. We had talked about crowdfunding a little bit, and we have a thing here, but I believe that's one of the keys that we have to be in the Black community, that we have to self-fund our ventures financially. We have to be empowered that way. And what's some things, if you had touched on it before, but what's some things that you see maybe this organization, this banking system being able to help facilitate in our community?
Sure. So like in the case of our crowdfunding, we made it where you could buy 100 shares for $147. And then not to be too philosophical, I
is that still available?
It's available now. I think you put it up there, www.paybaby.com. You can, it'll be at the very top, invest now. You can invest for as little as $147 for 100 shares. And part of it is, I believe we should invest in ourselves. And then remember, we're a public benefit corporation. So we listen to everybody, but, we need to not always be dependent to go into others who control actually a lot of it's our wealth. We got $3 trillion going through it. And yet we have to ask those of us who are not us for anything. So we should empower ourselves. But, I actually go back philosophically to this brother named Marcus Garvey, who had this idea about 100 years ago. And he created a shipping company called the Black Star. And there's this one sister who's part of our advisory board. And she said her mother showed her once, look at this share I have. This is a symbol of us having empowerment among us. It was a share of stock of the Black Star that Marcus Garvey owned. And so with that with that in mind is part of what we're doing. But beyond that is that every time you become a shareholder, then you think about, how do I participate? How do I help? Then we want to create a community where you go to PayBaby, you invest, you talk to your friends and buddies, you talk about financial empowerment. What are their habits? Then I bring up all these technologies. Said, wouldn't it be nice if I had X, Y, and Z? We don't know all the things, so we're looking for input. So we need to think about issues that affect us and how we can help each other. That's a huge part of what we're trying to accomplish, and we want to do it with excellence. So it's about the community, but it's not about just being cool. It's not about any of that. It's how do we do things in such a way that we can create a system where we own our own, we empower ourselves, and then we build wealth together.
Okay. Let's do something a little hypothetical. Sure. Let's say if I'm a pastor, a rabbi, an imam, or a sheikh, and I'm watching this telecast, or I'm CEO of a nonprofit. How would your bank in particular and online banking in general benefit our religious institutions and or our nonprofit institutions?
Sure. Okay. So starting, we love for you to be an investor, and then you have a voice on how you can have Black empowerment within our community. And then secondly, as we build out, we're going to be recirculating these dollars through Black banks and minority deposit institutions, as I mentioned it earlier. So you can automatically, have a way in which you can funnel money into the community that we wish to serve. And then there's another big part of digital banking that's changing everything. Mm. And that is everything that you see now that's in banking, like, for example, I'm familiar with, say, Islamic banking, which has its own rules. With technology, our platform is a banking platform, that could easily apply the rules to an Islamic bank or any other kind of bank, or it can. You can start filtering it in a way that's acceptable from a regulatory point, but also at the same time give you the tools to support things that you rather support. Like I mentioned Islamic banking, it wouldn't do things that that they were considered, they call it haram, but unacceptable, that kind of thing. So all that is possible now. And so it starts first with our community, and then secondly, a discussion of what are you looking for, and then building those type of technologies and banks that support that.
That's great, and that's creating actually a community of financial empowerment. I love that. I love that idea, and that goes back to my Garveyites, right? So, so let's just get that going. All right. We got about 10 minutes here. We want to continue this conversation. Now, I want you real quick, Brother Hassan, if you can, again, if someone just came in and they wanted to know exactly how they could get the app again, and how can they do that? How they could get going with you guys?
Sure. So our main site is www.paybaby.com, PAYBBY.com. That actually started as an acronym: Pay Black Brown You. And then the young people say, "Oh, that sounds like Pay Baby. That's cool." So that's why we did it. And then, as I mentioned, we bought the banking app called Wicket on Martin Luther King Day, WICKET. So we are the only Black banking institution in which you can download our banking app today in all 50 states, including Hawaii and Alaska, and then you can get involved. And if you want a seat at the table, we urge you to invest, and you can invest and buy 100 shares for a little $147. Many people are investing thousands of dollars. And you do that on the Pay Baby site. You click on the very top. It says Invest Now, our equity crowdfunding. And for those of you who don't know about equity crowdfunding, it was started with in 2012 by President Obama, and it allows non-accredited investors to invest in anything. So no matter what your wealth, if you have nothing, you could be on food stamps or whatever, and maybe you could only invest $100 or $200. That's legal now if you're a legal crowdfunding site. So we're a legal crowd, and if you go to Invest Now, we have to follow a Form C with the Securities and Exchange Commission. It's just like going public. The form looks almost identical to an IPO form, a Form S1. So all the data about our company is there. It's very granular. Like I tell many people, it forced us to get naked. I mean, all the way down, not even in the underwear, to show everything about it. So there's nothing about our company that's hidden. And so we plan to always be transparent and always be communicative and to stick to our mission of supporting our community. And again, go to our site, invest if you can, and download our app.
Awesome. And so it seems like you're been on a roll. What's some barriers that you've been facing? I mean, obviously you got this thing. It moved fast, since George Floyd to now. But I know this could have been something just simple for you. What were some barriers, or what's some things you had to overcome to get this rolling?
So as I mentioned earlier, less than 1% of all venture capital goes to Black entrepreneurs. So that was one of the biggest barriers. And then right after George Floyd, you had all these major corporations say, "Oh yeah, we want to support you," and all that. And then I called many of them. And they're like, "Oh, we got a committee, and the committee will decide and this and that." I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. So we still have that challenge. And then many of them, when they do provide money, they provide money to organizations, and they look at it not as an investment; they look at it as charity. In fact, when someone who just got a lot of money is a TV interview, and they even say, "We don't even care if we make money; we're just happy we gave them money." And I'm thinking, wait a minute. I'm a true businessman. I'm doing this not to serve my community, but this is a real business that can make a profit. And unless we have a business that makes a profit, it's not sustainable. And in fact, when I started, many people said, "Oh, the reason your people can't bank is because they're bad credit and all that." And I researched and I found that was not true. And so and that's even among our own people who don't believe it, right? And so and so that's why we have to. And right now, I challenge, if these big, major companies that talk about it, I want to see them put their money with, and not with this charitable attitude, because that is not going to change anything. We got, we understand, we are educated now. I'm the first college graduate in my family, right? And that wasn't true, so things have changed in that regard. What hasn't changed is our wealth relative to white wealth hasn't changed, which is a total disappointment. Yeah. Like, how could that be?
Have not changed at all. Yeah.
But we're going to change it now. That moment is changing. That moment will change. But I would say that we have to give, we've had a great struggle trying to explain that. Secondly, they believe, okay, they look at, I already can use one of these major white institutions. Why would I need to go to yours? Even among our own people, they were like, well, what's the point of a black bank? Who cares? I can just have my account at Chase. I said, well, less than 2% of the capital of our community gets recycled. And they're like, well, what does that have to do with me? I said, because they're taking your money and they're giving it to someone else. Someone that gets, when it's time to get a loan, the appreciation of our properties in our neighborhood don't go up like in other neighborhoods. A lot of that is due to the lack of capital. So all these things connect. And that's why you have to challenge yourself to invest in it. And you have to challenge every institution you go to put their money, when they say they want to do something, don't talk about, okay, I believe you, I'm not whatever anymore, but challenge them to take hard action. And we still struggle with that today, because I just gave a seminar the other day, all black people, and you would not believe how many of them like, I don't get it. Well, it's just a bank account. What difference does it make? What don't you do?
Actually, can I ask you
Go ahead.
Actually, I was going to ask you if it's okay. I know Brother Minister Yusuf might be have a question too, but how about the opposite? Are you in your mind want to market to outside the African American community, get that dollars and bring it into our community?
Great question. Our goal is to have the number one banking system in the world, bar none. Okay.
All right.
So when we do our product planning, when we do our roadmap, we're looking at how do we serve our community because of these special problems of discrimination and KYC and other things. But when we look at products and technology we're going to use, we're looking at how do we beat the big boys. Given our spending and the browning, less than half of people under 18 are white now. So eventually, we see no reason why there can't be a black institution on the order of a Chase or a B of A. And when that happens, and if we're number one, everyone will flock to us, which is fine. It'll be the opposite, in fact. It'll be others, non-blacks, and why did you go there? Well, they have the best service. Well, that's why I went there. That's our goal.
That's it. Brother Minister, did you have a question?
It's interesting. In my book, I talk about any economic philosophy that we develop, it must be rooted in a nucleus of culture, history, and spirituality. And just in this dialogue, I see that Pay Baby, fits that to a T. When we start dealing with non-African entities, that cultural component, that historical and that spiritual component is missing. But with Pay Baby, those nuances, I think, gives it a competitive advantage in the banking field. So it's kind of interesting to see this bank tie in with what I've written in my book about having a philosophy rooted in that nucleus of culture, history, and spirituality.
Great point. And that's why we want people to invest. That's why we want to start a community and discussion. And we should always be thinking and talking about how we get better with that culture, community, and spirituality embedded in everything we do. They're linked. Yeah. And unfortunately in this country, we've moved to a society of too much predatory capitalism. It's like, how can we hustle someone? And really the basis of business should be all about how do I provide something better, cheaper, faster? And as a result, I get rewarded for it. I did something good, not I took advantage.
That actually touches on, I was just actually watching a show, Saving Capitalism, different book about that, but it actually touches, I think what you just said touches on that, because it's just who's in control, right? And I just want who's in control, these isms, and control of the isms is what makes them good or bad. It's not the ism itself, like capitalism. But one of the things I want to say, I also like a brother has just said, with my company, we've been helping on the ground floor, helping businesses get from that level of actually going out and get a bank account to getting their back office in order so that they could be they could give to a loan officer something besides I did business, right? Change from being a hustle, a hookup to actually being in the business. And I love this because this is another avenue that they can go to, and everyone is available to it. So I'm going to say this: we're about to wrap up, but our brother Hassan, is there any last minute? You have about 1 minute. Something that you want to say for people to maybe reach you or come like to say to everybody.
Sure. So 2 things. One, I urge you to go to our site. I hope you invest at a minimum, download our app. But secondly, we want to hear and we want to begin the conversation, because this is all about how do we help each other and how do we look at what's most important. And that's very important. And as I mentioned, everything touches banking, but all the ways in which we could help touch banking is something that we need to talk among each other, and then talk about with new banks like us, so we can think about how we add that to our service. All right.
So I just want to thank everybody from everyone coming on, from Brother Minister Zumbia to my man Philip that came on earlier, Mr. Hassan doing his thing, and I appreciate that. I want to again go out there. Check it out. I thoroughly loved the conversation today. And I just want to say again, just go out there and you stand on code. I want to give shout out to my man Seiko, and we're going to be out, going to see you all next week. Stay locked in.
This show was brought to you by Positive Vibes Incorporated, our consulting services. We do credit fixes. We do tax resolution. We lend private money and debt consolidation. So if you need some of these services, we're waiting here for you. Credit fixes, tax resolutions, private money, and debt consolidation. Make sure you call Positive Vibes Incorporated.